Olmert's convergence plan, which is basically an annexation plan, which he's been going around the world trying to sell. And the convergence plan is a little bit vague about statistics, but most people think it would be something like 45 to 50% of the West Bank that would be annexed, basically stolen, occupied Palestinian territory to Israel. And then the Olmert government is actually using the wall as a boundary. And that's the reason. That's one of the main reasons for the wall. It's meant to make, to have this boundary where the agricultural land and the water resources are on the Israeli side. But this convergence plan is absolutely terrible. Olmert has said publicly that yes, he will talk to the Palestinians. He wants to talk to the Palestinians, but he will carry out his convergence plan no matter what. So he'll talk, but if they don't agree, he's going to do it anyway. So negotiations are just a ruse.
Palestinians wait for the world to finally see and do something, to demand justice so that there can, in fact, be a chance for peace. Palestinians wait and wait and wait as more and more irretrievable time is lost to them. My daughter Rachel grew up in Olympia, Washington. She loved Seattle, the mountains, the forest, and the sea. She was a writer. Rachel's response to 9/11 was to become very involved in the peace movement in Olympia. And she was drawn to this issue of Palestine and Israel by people who live in Olympia. One who is an Israeli woman who lives there now, whose family members survived the Holocaust, who grew up and lived in Israel for 29 years and has become a powerful voice against the occupation. And Rachel was impacted by local ISM, International Solidarity Movement volunteers, who in the summer of 2002 traveled to the West Bank and Gaza to join Palestinians in nonviolent direct action resistance to the occupation. She learned from all of these people. She started studying Arabic. She expanded her own study of this. And she wrote in her journal, "Why do I want to go? I've been organizing in Olympia for a little over a year on anti-war global justice issues. And at some point it started to feel like this work is missing a solid connection to the people who are most immediately impacted by U.S. foreign policy. I feel pretty isolated from the world in some ways because of living in Olympia my whole life. So I've had this underlying need to go to a place and meet people who are on the other end of the portion of my tax money that goes to fund the U.S. and other militaries." On March 16, 2003, Rachel was brutally crushed by an Israeli Defense Forces Caterpillar D9R bulldozer as she stood between that bulldozer and a Palestinian home that was threatened with demolition. Members of the family who owned the home, 2 brothers, a pharmacist and an accountant, their wives and their 5 young children watched through a crack in their garden wall as the bulldozer approached. Since September 2000, over 1,700 homes in Rafah were threatened and eventually demolished as Israeli occupation forces cleared a wide buffer strip and constructed a large steel wall along Rafah's border with Egypt. More than 10% of the population of Rafah lost their homes. Most of these people were refugees, many dispossessed for a second or third time. Human Rights Watch wrote in a report in 2004 called Raising Rafah, Mass Home Demolitions in the Gaza Strip, that the pattern of destruction strongly suggests that Israeli forces demolished homes wholesale, regardless of whether they posed a specific threat, in violation of international law. In the work that Rachel did, she worked with Israeli peace activists as she tried to understand the destruction of the Palestinian water supply. She received guidance from a reservist in the Israeli military, a father of 2 teenage sons who taught her Hebrew phrases to shout through her megaphone when she encountered bulldozers and tank operators. She was held as she died by Alice, who is a Jewish member of ISM from the UK, one of the 20 to 30% of ISM members who are members of the Jewish faith. I don't want to take too long here. I'm sure you're all warm, but I do want to say that I this week read an article. It was published in the Arabian Business magazine, a publication, in which Michael Tarazzi makes some significant points that I would just like to share. Michael Tarazzi is a Harvard-educated Palestinian-American lawyer, a scholar, and a former legal advisor to the Palestinian National Authority. He stated that the situation today is ominous. The Israeli government under Olmert is on track, as we've heard tonight, to unilaterally set Israel's borders, taking much of the West Bank through large illegal settlements and also the Jordan Valley. And right now, Hamas, in charge of the Palestinian government, and President Abu Mazen now battle in a conflict that serves the Israeli government's plans. Mr. Tarazzi said the Israeli government's strategy is and always has been to continue to take as much Palestinian land as possible and leaving as few Palestinians as possible on the land. Israel's ultimate unilateral goal is a Palestinian state, but one that serves Israel's interest, one as small as possible. And he also points out that a viable two-state solution is now virtually impossible the way things stand. And I witnessed myself how the wall in the West Bank has grown since my last visit there when I was there in January and December. And with the wall taking Palestinian land and confining Palestinians to small enclaves, with settlements continuing, the viability of a Palestinian state just hardly exists at this moment. Mr. Tarazzi points out that for all practical purposes, there is one state now, with Israelis and Palestinians sharing the same borders, the same airspace, the same water, the same resources, and the same highway infrastructure, but with 3 million Palestinian Muslims and Christians within those borders living without the rights that Israeli Jews have. Mr. Tarazzi points out that in South Africa, we called this apartheid. And he closes by saying that unless you address the population and the press and the government at the same time, that you are not going to get your voice heard. I'll close with just a few words from Rachel, really, that are encouragement to all of us that want to take some responsibility for this, want to work on it. Sometimes it becomes discouraging. This is what she had to say. The international media and our government are not going to tell us that we are effective, important, justified in our work, courageous, intelligent, valuable. We have to do that for each other, and one way we can do that is by continuing our work visibly. I also think it's important for people in the United States in relative privilege to realize that people without privilege will be doing this work no matter what, because they are working for their lives. We can work with them, and they know that we work with them, or we can leave them to do this work themselves and curse us for our complicity in killing them. I really don't get the sense that anyone here curses us. I also get the sense that people here in particular are actually more concerned in the immediate about our comfort and health than they are about us risking our lives on their behalf. At least that's the case for me. People try to give me a lot of tea and food in the midst of gunfire and explosive detonation. I love you, Rachel. Thank you.